Welcome. In this video cheat sheet series, we're going to be enabling IPv6 routing. We're going to start off with our baseline show command of show run pipe include IPv6 to see if there's any IPv6 configurations already on the router. And then we're going to enable the debug command debug IPv6 routing to see how things change, or if anything changes, when we enable IPv6 routing. And then we're going to finish up with the verification show command of show run pipe include IPv6 to see what's changed now that we've enabled IPv6 routing. So let's look at the network topology. We're going to be enabling IPv6 routing here on router 2. It's already been enabled throughout the rest of the network, but if you can enable it on one router, then you can enable it on several. So let's go ahead and get started. Start off with the show run pipe include IPv6 command that I referred to earlier. And as we can see from the output, we only have IPv6 on this router because that's all we've done so far in this video cheat sheet series is enabled IPv6 Ceph on our routers. So let's enable our debug command, debug IPv6 routing, to see how things unfold. Cisco routers do not by default enable IPv6 routing. That's why we're having to go in and enable it. This is just not something I thought I would show you. It's something that you actually have to do to be able to run IPv6. You can actually go ahead and configure the interfaces with IPv6 addresses. You may even be able to ping across links, especially with link local addresses. But if you want to be able to actually pass IPv6 traffic through a router and especially do any routing type features, you're going to have to do this command right here, which is IPv6 unicast routing, which enables IPv6 routing on a Cisco router. So let's go ahead and do that. Once again, IPv6 unicast routing, that's what enables IPv6 routing on a router. Well, it doesn't look like I'm getting a whole lot out of my debug command, which basically tells us, even though I'm doing a debug IPv6 routing and I just enabled it, even though I've enabled it on the router, there's not a whole lot going on as far as IPv6 yet, because we're still awful early in the video cheat sheet series. Because if anything with IPv6 routing would have popped up, this command right here definitely would have done that. So let's go ahead and look at our running config and compare it to what we had before. Earlier, when we did show run pipe include IPv6, all we got back was the IPv6 Ceph command, which is once again what we enabled in a previous video cheat sheet. I grabbed the wrong command. There we go. Show run pipe include IPv6. And now that we've ran it a second time for our verification command, we now see the original output that we had from the first command up here, and now we see that IPv6 unicast routing is now in the running config, which means that IPv6 has now been enabled on this router. So we started off with our baseline show command of show run pipe include IPv6, and we saw that only IPv6 Ceph had been enabled so far on the router. Then we enabled the debug IPv6 routing command, and when we enabled IPv6 routing, we did not get any output from that debug command, but I still wanted to run it just so that you could see basically that there's not a whole lot still going on. And then we finished up our verification show command with another show run pipe include IPv6 so that we could see the differences between the baseline and the verification, and we could visually verify that the IPv6 unicast routing command took, and now IPv6 routing is enabled on that router.